His friends. Everybody jump on Facebook now. It's the best thing. What did we sing? La 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 la, la 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 la. Okay, welcome everyone online around the world, on other planets that are listening in. We're going to be learning from the holy book, the Likutei Moharan, which is backwards on Facebook and upside down. Okay, this is lesson 193, Kuf Tzadi Gimel. So, Katzag. Katzag. That's a difficult one.
Kitzag.
Okay. Kitzag. Wait. I'm on the wrong one. We're going to do 194. So I wrote the wrong one on the lesson there. Don't pay attention. I'll fix it afterwards. Katzad. Katzad. It's like Kitzad, but it's Katzad. Okay. Kuf Tzadik Dalet. 194. Mi shirotze kavod hu shoteh. Somebody who wants honor, he is a fool. So if I want honor on Facebook right now, I'm a fool. Just to start it. It's not why I'm doing this. Ki lemashal. So we have the example. Sar gadol shalach pakid le'ir chad me'arayot shelo lemakom rachok. So we have like the head of the government, Sar Gadol, one of the top ministers, that sends one of his civil servants to one of the many cities in the kingdom. Right, and the Sar is basically the king. Sends one of his servants to one of the many cities in his kingdom to a distant province. Vak pakid hanal lakach la'atzmo sham kol hakavod. And so when that servant arrives, he took for himself all of the honor. Shalom Aleichem. Welcome. We just started. We're talking about somebody who wants honor is a fool. And we have the example of the king or a top servant that sends one of his lower level civil servants to a distant province. And when the civil servant arrives, he accepts all of the honor for himself. Ki ha'arilin Lo yadu shehu evet hasar, because when he arrives, the local peasants, they don't know that he serves the king, that he serves the top minister. V'savru shehu ba'atzmo hasar, and they assumed that if somebody is coming from the capital city, with a little bit of pomp and circumstance. Is that how you say it? Pomp and circumstance? You live here long enough, you forget things like that. Then they figured this must be the prime minister himself. So when they needed something, they would bow down to him and kiss his feet. And they'd give him all of the honor. Shalom Aleichem. And they would give him all of the titles that were honorable for the prime minister. Your honor, your highness, things like that. So, to review, we're in lesson Kuf Tzadi Dalet, which is 194. And Rebbe Nachman is saying somebody who wants honor is a fool. We have the example of a small civil servant who's sent by the prime minister to a distant province. And when he arrives there, everybody gives him all this respect. They bow down to him and they call him Your Highness. And he has no problem accepting all of this honor. Pa'am echad, here, so the grammar is different than in modern Hebrew. Pa'am echad, ba'hasar ba'atzmo lasham, u'ba'apakid lefanav. So it happened that the prime minister himself shows up at this distant province, and he comes to his civil servant, V'sha'al lo al iskei medina, and he asked him, so what's going on with this province over here? Umadua ele ha'arilim einam uvdim avodatam, and how come everyone here is so lazy and they're not doing their work as they should? V'kara l'shoter echad, and he calls over to one of the policemen, V'sha'al oto asar al esek ha'ir, and he asks him, so tell me what's going on in this city. V'ha'erel v'hashoter, and this simple policeman, lo yikir et asar, he didn't recognize the prime minister, rak et ha'pakid, just the civil servant. V'techef nafal leraglei ha'pakid, and so immediately he bows down to the feet of the civil servant, v'chalak lo kol ha'kavod ha'shayach la'asar, and he throws on him all of the honor that's fitting for the prime minister. V'hishiv lo al esek she'elato, and then he answered him about what's going on in the city. So we're talking about somebody who wants honor is a fool. And he gives the example of the prime minister that sends a simple servant to a distant province, and when the servant arrives, everyone gives him the honor of the prime minister. Then one day the prime minister shows up, and he asks one of the policemen, tell me what's going on with the people in this town. And the policeman, not recognizing the prime minister, only the civil servant, he bows down to the civil servant, kisses his feet, calls him Your Highness, and then he answers that prime minister who nobody knows he's the prime minister. Azai nitabchu panei hapakid keshulei kedeira. And then the face of the civil servant, he basically is deeply embarrassed. It turns black like the bottom of a pot. V'nitbayesh mod, and he's deeply embarrassed. Ki ein bizayon gadol mizeh, because there's nothing more embarrassing, there's no greater shame than this. Beinei hasar nodnim lo kavod kazeh, that while the prime minister is standing right next to you, you, the civil servant, are getting all of the honor that the prime minister would normally get. Kamochen, and so it is. Ikar kavod hu rak me'adibo. So he says, the only way that you can give somebody honor is through speech. Ki evar min ha'adam kagon yad eina yechola lechalok lo kavod. Because, for example, a limb like your hand, that can't give anybody honor. You could pat someone on the back, you could shake their hand, but you can't say Your Highness with your hand. I mean, maybe it's sign language, I don't know sign language, but most people that don't know sign language, they wouldn't get that. You couldn't do it with your foot, for example, or your shoulder, or your knee, or even your eyes. You can only do it with your mouth. Kigam eino nikar be'ayad ba'atzma tavnit ha'adam. Because you can't distinguish just from the hand what somebody is trying to express. V'chein afilu pnei ha'adam eino miyuchad la'adam ba'atzmo. And then he says, and even a person's face, a human being's face, is not unique to the human being. Ki nimtza gam chaya sheyesh la pnei ha'adam kagon kof. Because we also have animals, just like a monkey, that has a face that looks like a human being's face. Ve'ein ze gader ha'adam. And this is not what defines a person, that he has a face and can make facial expressions. Al ken eino mekaben kavod ki im me'adibor shebezeh muvdal me'ha'adam me'achai. And so, the only way that a person can actually receive honor is through speech. And speech is what distinguishes human beings from animals. And therefore, the main aspect of honor comes through speech. And speech is the palace of the king. Because palace, gematria Adonai, is the same gematria, the numeric equivalent of Adonai, which is one of the names that we call Hashem, B'chinat Dibo. And this is connected to speech, K'moshe Katuv, as it's written in Tehillim, Adonai Sifatai Tiftach. So we use the word of Hashem, Adonai, before we start to speak in the davening. And we say Sifatai Tiftach. Hashem, open up my lips so that I'll say the words that I need to say. Im kein rotzeh lekaben kavod beichal hamelech. And so, if somebody wants to receive honor when he's in the palace of the king, vein bizayon gadol mizeh, and there's nothing more shameful than this. Keyadua b'chush, as it's known in a palpable way. She bivadai yitbayesh ha'eved me'od, that for sure the civil servant or the servant will be deeply embarrassed. Sheyichanku lo kavod gadol lefnei hamelech kanal b'mashal hanal, when he is given all of the honor that would be fitting for the king, as in the example that we gave above. Right, so now we're heading into Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, and Sukkot and Simchat Torah and Shmini Atzeret, and then all that's a preparation for Hanukkah, which is a preparation for porn. Everything is preparation for porn. So, when we speak to Hashem, we have to acknowledge that all of the things that we did. Right? We're saying to Hashem, well, I gave a lesson in Torah, and I gave tzedakah, and I had guests for Shabbos, and I did this chesed, and I did that chesed. And really what we should say is, thank you, Hashem, for giving me the opportunity to teach a lesson. And thank you for giving me the opportunity to give tzedakah, and the opportunity to help a fellow Jew. Because it's really Hashem that's doing this stuff. We're not the ones that are supposed to receive this honor. It's only for Hashem. Otherwise, we're doing it for ourselves. We want to keep in mind that we're the civil servant that Hashem sent to a distant location to do the work, whatever work we have to do, but that we're not the prime minister, that Hashem is the prime minister. And to always keep in mind our job and Hashem's job. Any questions?
Amen.
Any amens?
Amen.
Amen.
Now you mentioned black as the bottom of the pot. Did you mean there's red when?
Here it says black is the bottom of the pot.
Really?
Where was it? Kishulei kadeva. So like the brims of the pot. The pots had soot on them, so they were black. I guess it's a phrase. I don't know. Yeah, it was the Hebrew speaker here.
I don't know, unless they didn't.
Maybe it's an old phrase. Yeah. Maybe it's a
cast iron.
Anyone want to say anything, or we'll just keep going? Okay.
I like your analogy. It's a great analogy.
That's how I see it.
Yeah.
No? All right. So let's sing something. So whenever I'm davening on Rosh Hashanah, it's pretty funny. It's Well, I always think of Michael Abraham laughing, so it makes it even funnier. What's funny is, some years I'll say, "Oh Hashem, I need at least $1 million this year, because I got so many things I have to do, and I'm not a boxer. I'm making $300 million a year, or a Nobel Prize winner." And then Hashem doesn't give me $1 million, and oftentimes gives me a lot less than $1 million. And they'll say, Hashem, I'm working on this project and I really need to be successful. It doesn't work out. And so then I'll come into the next year and I'll say, you know what, Hashem, I'm not asking for anything this year. Whatever you give me, I'm just going to accept it. And then I basically get the same thing as when I ask for $1 million. And I'm like, well, at least I didn't ask for $1 million. And every year I'm trying to figure out, how do I ask for what I want? And so some years I'll say, Hashem, whatever you created the world for and whatever you created me for, just make that happen and help me to connect with it and help me to be doing what I'm supposed to be doing. And I realize I'm just a leaf in the wind and I don't really have any control over my life. It's really true, I love to think that I have some control. And the only choice that we have is, are we going to wake up in the morning and get out of bed? Are we going to brush our teeth? Are we going to put the coin in the tzedakah box? Are we going to daven? It's the choice between good and bad. That's the only choice we have. But whether we're here or we're not so much of a choice. We feel like we chose it. But not everybody gets to live here in Jerusalem and Eretz Yisrael. And whether we have children or not, whether we're married or not, whether we have what we feel is successful in life or not, it's not up to us. So we don't have a lot of control. So what are you davening for? Like, if you know that you don't have any control and there's nothing that you can do, what are you davening for? You're davening for basically what Reb Zusha said. Reb Zusha said, I'm not worried that they're going to tell me that I wasn't like Avraham Avinu when he gets upstairs. Because I'm not Avraham Avinu. I'm not worried they're going to tell me that I wasn't like Moshe Rabbeinu. Because I'm not Moshe Rabbeinu. I'm worried they're going to tell me that I wasn't like Zusha. I'm worried that I'm not going to live up to what Hashem created the whole world for. Because every one of us knows that Hashem created the entire world and the entire universe in order for us to exist and even to be sitting here right now together. And so everything that's happening in the world, right, and also Reb Zusha said, on the one hand, everyone has to say the whole world was created for me. And on the other hand, remember that we're nothing but dust and ashes. That when the day comes, we're all going to be buried, hopefully, going to be buried in the same way. So, at least we know from Rebbe Nachman that when we're davening, not to come with any pride in front of Hashem, just to come with gratitude and hope that He gives us more opportunities, and when the opportunities come, that we can actually do them with joy.
Amen.
Without the Hashem. So I have a little lesson here, little story that I'm very proud. My book's been typeset. I enlarged the print, but it's typeset. I'm making progress. And this is the only story in the book that's not a direct story of like somebody that I met. It's actually about a nail on the wall, and you can see it in front of the stender, and it's about that nail. So it's called, What's That Nail Thinking? While davening in shul on Friday night, I found a nail on the wall and focused on it. I had the thought, what is that nail thinking? He probably thinks, I'm awesome. I'm made of metal. I've been hammered into a cement wall. I've been here for years, invincible. What could ever happen to me? And I'm important. People hang their coats on me. They hang the calendar on me. I'm strong. I'm reliable. Everyone needs me, and I have a great view. I can see the whole shul. Ah, to be a nail. That's the best. That's the good life. But what would happen if one day, just because that's how things happen sometimes, maybe because of so many people using the nail, he falls out of the wall? It'll happen when no one's paying attention. One day he's on top of the world. The next day he's lying on the floor. "Oy, how far I've fallen," the nail sobs. "What's become of my life? I had everything. I was everything. And now look at me. Oy vey, my life is ruined." What's the floor thinking now? Finally, that nail has fallen. How many years did he sit up there, full of pride, thinking he was so important, telling me and the others how he was strong, invincible, how he could see everything from his penthouse, how nothing could break him. Now look at that pathetic nail, lying on his back on me. If it weren't for me, he'd fall forever. "You see, you bragger, the floor says to the nail. "You better thank God for me. If it weren't for me, you'd have no one to fall on. How far could you possibly go with a floor underneath you? Never underestimate the power of a floor, you foolish nail. I will never fall out of the wall. I'll be here forever. This building couldn't exist without me. Ah, to be a floor. Now that's the ultimate." The whole night passes with the nail on the floor, crying over his loss. Then the next day and the day after that. No one even notices that the nail has fallen. And oh, how far has he fallen? The nail doesn't know what to do with himself. How will I ever get back up there, where I once was, he asks himself. And he knows with certainty that he cannot raise himself up without help. Nonetheless, he tries. Almost an entire week passes. The nail is still on the floor. It's Friday afternoon. The guy who arranges the shul is cleaning the floor and arranging the chairs. He sees the nail on the floor, picks it up and looks to find where it came from. He sees the hole in the wall where the nail used to be. The nail stops crying while he's being picked up. "Finally," he says to himself. The guy presses the nail back in the wall and walks away. As he clears his tears, the nail realizes he's back in the wall, back up in the penthouse. But he could fall out at any second. "What?" he says to himself. "I'm hanging here by the skin of my teeth. I could fall out and be right back where I was in an instant. What will be with my life? What will be with me? Oy vey." How much stress can a nail experience? He's getting a migraine. He thinks, okay, this is better than being on the floor. I mean, how low can you go? A floor? That's pretty bad. At least I'm not a floor. But this instability is killing me. It's making me insane. I can't stand the stress of living life on the edge. The nail realizes there's nothing he can do. He's back, kind of. He can't wiggle himself deeper into the hole. He tries, but after all, he's just a nail. Self-conscious, but inanimate. Then he sees the cleaning guy coming back, with a hammer. Could it be, the nail says to himself, maybe that hammer is for me? But before the guy comes to the nail, he goes to another nail and pounds him into the wall. "Another nail!" he screams out in agony. "Why him and not me? What, I don't need saving? I don't need to be hammered into the wall? I need stability. My God, have some compassion on me, please." Then the guy comes over to our friend the nail and grabs him at the sides really tight. Then he hits him hard on the head with the hammer. The nail lets out a bitter scream. "You are killing me. Oy, the pain." Then he hits him again, this time harder than before. "Oh my God, stop it. I can't take the pain anymore." But the cleaning guy doesn't speak nail. He speaks English. And he hits the nail again, hard, again and again. The nail feels like this pain will never end. Will this be my life now, he says to himself. Is this my destiny, a life of pain? And just then the cleaning guy stops, checks the nail, and walks away. The nail opens his eyes. He couldn't bear to see the hammer as it was coming to hit him again and again. "Is it over?" he says, still feeling the sting of the blows. He feels the stability of the wall. He's deep in the wall and secure. It's just like the good old days. No, even better than the good old days. He's so strong into the wall. Could he ever fall out again? This is awesome, he says to himself. I did it. I made it. I'm invincible again. I'm the king of this wall. No one will ever knock me down again. The floor looks up at the wall. Don't be so impressed with yourself, Nail. You didn't do anything. All you did was complain. You cried, you wailed, you screamed, you were stressed out of your mind. You think you actually did something? You didn't do anything. All you did was be a nail, and you didn't even do such a great job of that. What kind of nail are you? The nail was about to make some snide comment to the floor like, who are you to talk? Everyone walks all over you. But then he realized the floor was right. Yes, he's the nail. But outside of being born a nail and having the fate of a nail, which is to be hammered into something, what did he really do? And when the test of his life came, when he finally could do something, what did he do? Total meltdown. The truth is his life had never been so good, but he knows the floor is right. Just because he was a strong, reliable, invincible nail high up in the wall, it was nothing to brag about. The nail has been humbled, and it feels real. For the first time in his life, he gains perspective, maybe even some wisdom. He hopes to never fall from such heights again. But if he does, he knows, at least he hopes, the next time he will be stronger than before. So when you see the nail, now you know what he's thinking. Okay, I've got a couple of stories for you.
Rebbe Nachman story.
This is a Rebbe Nachman story. It's in the appendix. The addition to the addition. Zat Hashem. Okay, I've got two stories for you. But let's sing a little song first. Make sure everyone stays awake. It's like magic. Kol minu elai, kol minu elai, kol minu elai, ve'ishamu elai, la 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 la, la 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 la, la 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 la. Of a tailor. It's so funny how all these stories of tailors, and how many Jews do you know that are tailors anymore? But that was like the high tech at the time, I guess. You know, especially if you had a sewing machine that you could run with your foot. And so lots of stories of tailors. So there was a tailor, and he had a little shop, and a nobleman came in one day and said, "Listen, I need you to make a suit for me." And this little Jew, he sews the suit. The nobleman comes back and he says, "Well, you did an amazing job, really exceptional. I've got a lot of work to do in my palace. I want to hire you as my private tailor. You're going to move into the palace, and you're going to make clothes for the whole family, the whole entourage." So this Jew says, "Well, things are looking up for me." And he takes the job. And, he's like in demand all the time, and he's not able to go home whenever he wants. And he stops davening with the minyan, and he doesn't have any kosher food, and he starts eating non-kosher food. And one thing leads to another, until he's just totally separated himself from his family and the community, and he's just making lots of money being the nobleman's tailor. One day the nobleman goes to Paris, and he buys this beautiful material, and he brings it back. And he says to the tailor, "This is very expensive. This cost me a fortune. And I want you to make the most beautiful suit for me." And the tailor says, "You got it. I've been waiting my whole life to make a suit from material like this." And he plans it all out and cuts the pieces of paper, and he measures everything, and he starts sewing. And as he's sewing, he's thinking about how much the nobleman's going to appreciate this and how this is like his greatest piece of work he's ever done. And he finishes it, and it's really a masterpiece. And he gives it to the nobleman. The nobleman says, "This is beautiful." And as soon as he puts it on, he takes it off right away. And he says, "What is this disgusting thing you made for me? This is the worst piece of clothing I've ever seen." He throws it at him. He says, "You get out of here right now, and if I ever see your face again, I'll kill you with my own 2 hands." So now this Jew doesn't know what to do, because here he was living the good life, separated himself from the community, hasn't even seen his wife and kids in who knows how long. And here he lost his job, and his life is being threatened, and he doesn't know what to do. So he goes back to his Rebbe. And who's his Rebbe? Rebbe Nachman, who's the son of the Yid Kadosh. The holy Jew was one of Rabbi Yaakov Yitzchak, was one of the closest Hasidim of the Seer of Lublin. So Rabbi Nachman, who was a big Rebbe himself, he takes in the tailor, and the tailor says, "Here's what happened. I got the job and the cloth and everything, and here's the suit." He said, "Look at the suit. It's beautiful." So Rabbi Nachman, he takes the suit, and he puts his fingers over the stitches, and he goes over the whole suit. And he says, "Here's what you're going to do. You're going to take the suit, go back to your shop, and you're going to unstitch everything, and then you're going to stitch it all again and bring it back to the nobleman, and you'll be okay." And he says, "Okay, I don't have any choice. What am I going to do?" So he goes and he unstitches everything, and he stitches it all back again. And as he's stitching it, he's crying because he knows this could be the end of his life. He goes into the nobleman and just take a shotgun and shoot him. Or maybe he'll use a sword this time. I don't know. And you like that, huh? No laser beams. So he sews it back together and brings it to the nobleman. He says, "This looks like the same suit as before." And the tailor says, "There's something different about it now. Just try it. Trust me. It's worth it for you. Try it." So the nobleman puts it on, and he says, "You really outdid yourself. This is magnificent." And he pays him in gold coins, and he says, "Okay, you got your job back. Everything's fine." So now he has no idea what's going on. And he goes, "It's okay, a little earthquake. Keep Facebook on their toes."
Right,
At least there's no electricity blackouts this time. No disco. So he goes back to Rebbe Nachman, and he says, "Rebbe, I don't understand. The first time, I sewed it exactly like I did the second time." And the Rebbe said, "Really? Exactly like the second time?" He said, "What were you thinking the first time?" He said, "The first time I was thinking, this is my greatest piece of work ever. I've never done anything so good. And how much the nobleman's going to be happy." And he said, "In the second time?" So the second time I was crying because my life was, I was risking my life to bring this back." And he said, "That's right. The first time you did it from a place of your ego. And the second time you did it from a place of humility. So when you brought it to the nobleman the first time, he looked at the suit, it looked fine, but as soon as he put it on, it smelled. It stunk of your ego. But the second time you put it on, and it smelled sweet, because it had the sweet smell of your humility." He said, "Don't think that just because you're a fancy tailor and you have a fancy job, you can separate yourself from the community and from Hashem. You do what you have to, but you keep your ego intact." And that was the lesson. less than the tail end. Okay, another song and then another story. You want to give us a laugh? Again of Rebbe Nachman, who was the son of the holy Jew, Yidde Kadosh. Maybe it's his yahrzeit today, I don't know, I didn't get a chance to check. It's very interesting. I'm always trying to figure out, so what story am I going to tell, what's going to be related to the lesson. And it's amazing how fast Tuesdays come. It's like Tuesday is over and then every day is, oh wait, it's 2 days to Tuesday. Which is good, I mean Shabbos is coming. So I was thinking about the story, and I didn't even know that it was Rebbe Nachman Yidde Kadosh. Oh, there we go. So he was a big Rebbe, and we've seen what it's like, or we can imagine what it's like to when there's a big Rebbe, all these people coming, and it wasn't like today. People really, they needed food to be provided for them. It wasn't, like people had their own home next to the Rebbe. Most people lived at a distance. They would come and spend Shabbos. Someone would have to pay for all the food, and someone would have to pay for all the lodging. And there weren't a lot of rich Hasidim, but there was one guy whose name was Rebbe Avraham. Not Karliner, but maybe by you, Bezat Hashem, one day. And Rebbe Avraham was a close Hasid of Rebbe Nachman, the Rebbe Nachman, and he was the one who supported the entire community. And he was very close to the Rebbe, and of course he had a seat next to the Rebbe, and every time he would come, he was given all this honor. Everyone would wait for hours, or sometimes days, to see the Rebbe. He was given the VIP pass, brought in right away as soon as he showed up. Right? Very nice position to be in. But what happened, unfortunately, was he lost all of his money. Just like I said, we think we have control, but we don't have control. You make this decision, you think it's a good decision. Turns out it was the wrong one. Just a side story. On Tisha B'Av, I read these stories of the Holocaust, and I was reading about this woman who was the daughter of a big Rebbe. I don't remember if it was a Belzer Rebbe or one of the Rebbes. And she had 2 passports, one for a South American country and one for Palestine. And the Nazis said, everybody decide which passport you have, because everyone from one or the other, they didn't say which one it was, is going to be saved. And she had to figure out, she was there with her daughter, she had to figure out which passport she was going to use. And she was just like going out of her mind. For days she couldn't figure out the South American passport, the Palestine passport. And eventually there was like a very small group of Jews that had Palestine passports. The large majority had these South American passports. And she said, I'm going to go with the South American group. And she takes the Palestinian passport, rips it up and swallows it, and gets on the train. And so they go off to that direction, and the group with the Palestine passports goes off in that direction. And it turned out that the group with the Palestine passports was saved, and the other group went straight to the gas chambers. So I was thinking about that as I was reading the story. What choice would I make? How do you decide? And I would say I'm going to go for the Palestine passport, because if I'm going to die, Hashem's going to know that I wanted to come to Eretz Yisrael. Whatever's going to happen, you don't have any. That's a situation where you really feel like you have no control. And here's your one choice. So, okay, she made the wrong choice, and I might have made the wrong choice. It might have been the other way around. But as I was reading the story, I was thinking, just that one thing. So that was just a sidetrack to say how we don't have control. We think we have control, but we don't have control. And so here you have this chassid, Rebbe Avram, and he loses his fortune. And he's really depressed, and he's sitting there at home. And his wife says to him, you should go back to the Rebbe. He'll welcome you with open arms, and he'll put you in your chair next to the Rebbe, and you'll get all that honor, and you'll feel good about yourself. Okay, we don't have any money like we used to, but at least lift up your spirits. And he says, you know what, that's right. After all those thousands of rubles that I gave, and all those years and years that I supported everyone, I'm not going to ask for anything. I just want to go and be appreciated. So he shows up by the Rebbe Yerachmiel, and he says to the Gabbai, I want to see the Rebbe. And the Gabbai says, I don't know who you think you are. Go wait in line with all the other schleppers. And this guy is really upset with Abraham, and he thinks to himself, what? This is how I'm treated after all these years and all I've done. And so the line's too long. He doesn't get a chance to get into the Rebbe, and now it's Friday night, and there's the tish, and there's his chair. But someone else is sitting in his chair. And he tries to get in front of the crowd, but the crowd won't let him get up to the Rebbe. And the Rebbe, in Chabad, they don't have shirayim, leftovers, or remains from the Rebbe. But in the other Hasidic groups they do. So I'll explain the difference in just a second. So the Rebbe eats his piece of challah, and then they take this huge challah and they give it to everybody, and he doesn't even get a piece of challah. So what's the difference? In Chabad, they want you to work. You don't get carried by the Rebbe. And all the other Hasidic groups, at least that I don't, except for maybe Breslov, you basically ride on the coattails of the Rebbe. So you're around a guy who's most likely, most of the Rebbes are tzaddikim. I've met a Rebbe who wasn't. That clearly wasn't, and I was deeply disappointed. Either that he was incredibly hidden, but I was asking everybody, what's with this guy? What's with this guy? I'm like, no, he's not the real thing. He's just like 5 generations from the real thing. Just because your father was a tzaddik doesn't mean you're a tzaddik. Or your grandfather, your great-grandfather. Sometimes you are, sometimes you're not, but it's not a necessarily thing. So what do? The Rebbe, who's a great tzaddik, he eats a piece of fish, and then this whole bunch of fish is spread around to everyone. He eats a piece of bread, and then everybody gets the bread. So that's how it works with most of the Hasidic groups, not in Chabad, and I don't know how it was with Breslov when the Rebbe was alive. But in Chabad, when all of the Chabad Rebbes were still alive, they didn't have any of the shirayim. Shalom Aleichem. Come on in. So, talking about Chassid of Rebbe Yerachmiel, who supported, his name was Rebbe Avram, he supported the community, now he lost all of his money. His wife says, go back, for old times, and you'll get treated respectfully. And he comes back and he sends right away to the schleppers line. He's like, what's the deal? And then Friday night he wants to get some of the bread from the Rebbe, and no one even gives him a piece. Same thing on Shabbos, he can't get to the Rebbe, and nobody gives him any respect. And finally, Sunday morning, everyone's waiting in line to see the Rebbe, and he figures, okay, this is my chance. He goes up to the Gabbai and he says, listen, you got to let me in. I got to see the Rebbe. And he said, I told you before, you wait in line with all the other schleppers. So he's waiting, and the line isn't moving forward, and he's getting really frustrated. He says, forget it. I don't have the patience to wait in line. I know exactly where the Rebbe comes out of his house, and when he comes out, I'm going to jump out, and I'm going to say, Rebbe, you got to help me. And so he waits, and the Rebbe comes out of the house, and he says, Rebbe, please, my whole life is falling apart. You got to help me, please. And the Rebbe doesn't even look at him. He takes out his change purse, counts out 14 pennies. He says, here you go. Without even looking at Rebbe Avram. The guy who supported this community for years, given so much money, just because he lost his money, this is how he's being treated now. And he looks at 14 pennies, and he says, 14 pennies? That's so disrespectful. You couldn't even give me like 1 ruble. Nothing. A rich man, you give him 14 pennies. And he says, I'm tired of this, I never should have been around this Rebbe. He's not even a real Rebbe, he's a fake Rebbe. There you go, we have fake news and fake Rebbes. And thank God, I should never have been here in the first place. I guess Hashem did me a favor by making me poor so I can get away from this crazy guy. And he's standing there by some tree, and he's crying, and he says, Hashem, you just ruined my whole life, and I can't take it anymore. And then this little Polish kid comes over, and he says, Mister, you want to buy something? And he looks at this Polish kid, and he says, get away from me. I have such problems. I don't want to deal with you. And the Polish kid says, listen, I've got 14 packages, and they cost a penny each. Will you buy them for me? And he said, well, I only have 14 pennies. He said, well, that's a good deal. And then he says to himself, wait a second, 14 packages, 14 pennies, and the Rebbe gave me 14 pennies. Maybe this is what I've been waiting for. And he gives the little kid 14 pennies, and he gets the 14 packages, and he opens the first one, and it's a stack of bills, of 100 ruble bills. One after the other, 14 of these packages.
Good deal.
And he's richer than he ever was before. So now he has no idea what's going on. He goes back to the Rebbe. And he says, Rebbe, I can't take it anymore. You got to tell me what's going on. The Rebbe says, now I can finally tell you what's happening. He said, I saw in heaven that it was decreed that you were going to lose all of your money. And I davened for you. I did everything I could because you've been such a supporter and you're such a good friend. I did everything I could, but it was decreed in heaven you're going to lose all your money, and there was nothing I could do. But it wasn't decreed that you should stop being my chassid. So I said in Shemayim, I refuse to accept him as a chassid when he's poor. I'll only take him as a chassid when he's rich. And to prove it, I told all the chassidim and the gabbai to treat you like the poorest of the poor with no respect whatsoever. And you came here and they sent you to the back of the line, and they didn't let you see me, and they didn't give you any food, so that you would go and cry to Hashem. And when he heard your crying and he heard your tshuva, then he said, okay, I'm going to give you the money, and you can come back and be my chassid again. He said, so you see, we broke all the gates and changed your fortune for you. And this reminds me of another story, since we have a couple of minutes. The Baal Shem Tov once, a woman comes to him and says that her child is very ill. And she's been to all the big rabbis, and she's been to all the big rabbis, and nobody can figure it out, and of course all the doctors. And this child is really ill, and she needs help. So the Baal Shem Tov said, please go to the quarter where the thieves hang out, and tell them I need 10 Jewish thieves. So she said, Rebbe, really, 10 Jewish thieves? He said, just do what I said. So she goes, and she brings the Jewish thieves, and they have a minyan together, and they daven for this kid, and then he says to the woman, go back, your child had a refuah shlema. So she goes back, and it's true, her child had a full recovery. She comes back to the Baal Shem Tov and says, I don't get it. Why did we need thieves to daven for my daughter? I had the greatest tzaddikim davening for her. And the Baal Shem Tov said, you're right. All of those tzaddikim davened, and I also davened, but I couldn't break through the gates of heaven. I needed some Jewish thieves to help me out, to break the locks and get into heaven. All right. So next week we have a friend who's getting married Tuesday night. All of you should get married on Tuesday night, B'ezrat Hashem. So we won't have a lesson next week, the week after, God willing. And I forgot to mention, this is for Refuah Shlema to Shalom ben Sarah Rivka, and all of the Jewish people that need a Refuah, B'ezrat Hashem. Everyone needs a Shidduch and Panasa and Shalom Bayit and children, whatever you need. Amen.
Amen.